Ethiopian Jews, the long-lost 12th tribe of Israel, were trying to flee famine, a civil war, and religious persecution. They had to walk for roughly 8 weeks from Ethiopia to Sudan to get to the refugee camps. Jewish identity is complicated, and Israel isn't a perfect country, and it is still finding a way to work through racism and discrimination that face the Ethiopians and other minorities of Israel. This is their heroic story.
ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי בשובך יחזור שוב האור בעיניי, לא גמור לא עוזב המגע בידייך, שיבוא ויעיר למשמע כל צחוקך.
Jews lived in Ethiopia for thousands of years. No one is entirely sure how the Jews got to Ethiopia. Some believe that they are the descendants of the tribe of Dan. Others think that the Jews in Ethiopia were the indirect result of a romance between the ancient queen of Ethiopia, Queen Sheba, and the Jewish king, King Solomon. When the Jewish community in Ethiopia flourished, they were in their hundreds of thousands. They called themselves B'nai Israel, the House of Israel. According to B'nai Israel elders, it is said that they established their own state and even had their own queen, Queen Judith. They observed Shabbat traditions, circumcision, kosher laws, and celebrated Jewish holidays.
However, over the years, due to forced religious conversions and persecution, disease, famine, and other forces of nature, they have dwindled down to a mere fraction of that. By the second half of the 20th century, only a few thousand Jews were left. Given challenging local laws, they were excluded from the local society and limited to only certain professions that included basic agricultural, tool making, and other handiwork. Their Ethiopian neighbors used the slur falasha, meaning outsider or stranger, to refer to their Jewish neighbors. By the 1970s, some members of the Knesset believed that the Ethiopian Jews would be a drain on the economy. Others challenged their Judaism. In 1973, there was even an attempt to deport the handful of Ethiopian Jews that were in Israel. It was only after the Sephardic chief rabbi declared them as truly Jews that the tide had turned.
פברואר 1973, בתגובה לשאילתה הלכתית, הרב עובדיה יוסף, אז הרב הראשי הספרדי, פוסק: יהודי אתיופיה הם יהודים, צאצאי שבט דן.
A short 2 years later, in 1975, the state of Israel officially declared the Ethiopian Jews as eligible for Aliyah. But the Ethiopian government quickly made it almost impossible for them to leave. Israel thought that by selling weapons to Ethiopia it would help. It did not. Once the news of Israeli weapons broke out, the Ethiopians quickly backed out in fear that their Arab allies would retaliate against them. The mission to bring back the Ethiopian Jews to their homeland was rekindled in 1978, when a letter landed in Israel from Sudan, where refugee camps are located. The letter describes how the Ethiopian Jews are stranded and that they need Israel's help so that they could finally be safe after so many years. One of the biggest issues facing the Israeli government was how were they going to get the Ethiopian Jews out of a volatile, war-ridden region safely without starting an all-out war. Help came from an unexpected source, Ferede Aklum. Ferede was an Ethiopian Jew and a Zionist activist. An aspiring and brave man, headmaster of a local school and of their regional council in Ethiopia, whose biggest dream was to make it to Jerusalem. Ferede made the journey to Sudan. He arrived in Sudan penniless and sold his wedding band to collect some money so he could contact the Mossad. He was able to connect with a local Mossad agent and later educated Mossad about the journey he had made from Ethiopia to Sudan. The trails he had discovered then became the prototype for the Mossad, who used them to lay the foundation for future operations. The Mossad was listening.
After reviewing a number of options, they came up with a solution that seemed more like a Hollywood film than a solution by a sovereign state. They decided to lease an old diving resort on the coast of Sudan. This resort was an amazing cover for their team to transport the Ethiopian Jews to an Israeli Navy ship moored nearby for a period of time.
You can talk about the operation of bringing the Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia to Israel without tell the history.
Yes.
Before the Israeli Air Force was involved, the Mossad arranged the resort, the diving resort, and through the diving resort bring Ethiopian to Israel.
After the Israeli government and Mossad were contacted by Faredeh Klum, a small team of undercover Mossad agents signed a 3-year lease on an abandoned tourist resort on the shores of the Red Sea in Sudan. They used it as their cover for a covert operation, their mission to save the Ethiopian Jews. They posed as diving instructors, windsurfing instructors, and hotel managers. The Aros Holiday Village was billed as the diving and desert recreation center of Sudan. The resort became a business success story, drawing actual foreign scuba divers and tourists. Mossad began extracting groups of approximately 100 Ethiopian Jews at a time from refugee camps. They were quickly packed onto trucks and taken on a journey across the desert to the dive resort. The refugees were met by Navy SEAL in the dead of night and ferried to an Israeli mothership in international waters. From there, it was home to Israel. The operation was so covert that neither the local employees nor the guests were aware of the resort's real purpose. It is estimated that the dive resort operation, through ships and later flights, rescued over 6,000 Ethiopians. The operation stopped after an Israeli politician made reference to this covert operation. The Mossad agents had to be rescued in diplomatic crates, put onto aircrafts.
Operation Moses started shortly after the dive resort was closed down. It started in late 1984. The mission was originally called Cub of the Lion of Judah. It was later changed to Operation Moses. The operation was a joint effort between the Israeli Defense Forces, the CIA, the United States Embassy in Khartoum, and the Sudanese State Security Forces. One of the main architects of Operation Moses was the then Associate U.S. Coordinator for Refugee Affairs, Richard Krieger. After receiving accounts of the persecution of Ethiopian Jews in the refugee camps, that they traveled over 1,000 kilometers to get to Sudan, Krieger came up with the idea of an airlift and met with Mossad and Sudanese security representatives to facilitate the operation. After a secret Israeli cabinet meeting in late November of 1984, the decision was made to go forward with Operation Moses.
Okay, I am only talking about my own experience, my own immigration story. I immigrated to Israel at the age of 5.5, or you could say 6. I came at a very young age.
עליתי בגיל 6, אפשר להגיד. הגעתי בגיל מאוד צעיר. בשנת 84.
December of 84.
דצמבר 84.
My mom and two of my brothers, one 5 years older, one 5 years younger. We all made the journey.
קטן ממני ב5 שנים. ועשינו את המסע. כן, כן. אז גרנו...
We came from a village called Iva. It was a Jewish village quite far from town. My dad was a metal worker and he had a very good job.
זה כפר יהודי, שאתה יודע שהוא מאוד מרוחק מהעיר. כפר שהיה בו גם כן מלא יהודים. אבא שלי עבד בנפחות, היה לו מקום מאוד מאוד טוב מול החברה שהוא היה חי איתה, בסביבה שהוא היה בה.
I asked Zehavi to tell me about the journey.
My mom tells me that the rumor spread rapidly. My dad decided that we should leave quickly. My dad had a small event at his workplace, but he did not present it as a farewell. We were joined by my dad's brother, his 5 kids, and my grandmother. In total, we were a group of about 20.
הוא החליט שהוא עוזב, הוא ועוד אח עם 5 ילדים, היינו איזה 20 נפשות, וסבתא שלי מצד אמא החליטה שגם היא מצטרפת.
The day after his event at work, my dad sold all of his livestock and other inventory. He made sure we had everything we need for the journey. My older brother remembers this well. We had money for bribes, gold, and many other things. My dad was a very smart man. He was a leader. We left for the journey. I remember we had 2 horses, 2 donkeys, and several security guards. He arranged it perfectly.
אז הוא לקח, יצאנו למסע, והיה מסע, אני זוכרת שתוך כדי המסע, היו לנו 2 סוסים, היו לנו 2 חמורים, והיו לנו מלא מאבטחים ושומרים, כאילו כל המסע היה מושלם.
At one point, some of the kids got sick, so my dad halted the journey at a Jewish village close to the border with Sudan. In retrospect, I learned that it was my husband's village. Small world.
שהיום בדיעבד מסתבר לי שזה הבית של סבא של בעלי. תבין כאילו איזה עולם.
After a month break, the complete journey took us close to 4 months. But the actual walking was about a month and a half. You know Israel, right? My brother tells me that the journey was like walking from the Hermon mountain in the north to Eilat. But the terrain was very desert-like. Midway, we encountered some robbers. My dad was able to get us out of that situation. But I know of stories of other families that were subject to kidnapping, murder, rape, and more. Very difficult stories. My family was able to finish the journey and get to the crossing town. We passed the border into Sudan and made it to the refugee camp nearby.
של חברות שלי, של משפחות שלמות, גם שהוכחדו, שנרצחו, שנשים נאנסו ונחטפו, מלא סיפורים מאוד מאוד קשים. אנחנו הצלחנו לצלוח את המסע והגענו לאמרקובה, עברנו את המעברים, עברנו את הגבולות, הגענו לסודן, ובסודן הגענו לאמרקובה.
For most families, the journey to Sudan was challenging, often painful, and marred by personal loss. For Zehavit and her family, it was extremely personal as her dad was murdered. Here's Zehavit again telling her story.
The Sudanese were huge, like gorillas. One of them stepped on my dad's throat. My dad was able to break loose.
ואיכשהו אבא שלי הצליח להשתחרר ממנו, זה לא אני כאילו, איכשהו הצליח להשתחרר ממנו.
They simply murdered him in front of my uncle. It is horrible, and this is why our elders tend to be very wary.
כאילו המבוגרים שלנו, הם כל כך חשדנים בגלל כל הדבר הזה שהם עברו. וברגע שהבנתי...
When I saw my mom's reaction, I understood that my dad was not coming back. I froze. I blocked everything from that moment on until we got to Israel.
אני לא יודעת, קפאתי, שמתי מסך, ומאז כאילו אני לא זוכרת כלום עד שהגענו לארץ.
I don't remember the experience.
לא זוכרת להגיד לך.
The airlift operation began on November 21st, 1984. It involved air transport by chartered planes from an airline called Trans-European Airways. Trans-European Airways had flown out of Sudan previously with Muslims making the pilgrimage to Mecca. So using Trans-European Airways was a logical solution for this semi-covert operation because it would not provoke questions from airport authorities or other observers. The flights from Sudan stopped in Brussels before continuing to Israel. The stopover in Brussels was also designed to make the operation be more discreet and not to raise any suspicion. The operation ended on Friday, January 5th, 1985, after Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres held a press conference confirming the airlift while also asking people not to talk about it. Sudan stopped the airlift moments after Peres finished speaking, ending the operation prematurely as the news began to reach the Sudanese Arab allies. In total, the operation brought over 8,000 Ethiopian Jews to Israel, with over 30 or so flights.
After it was determined that naval rescues had become too dangerous and after Operation Moses came to an immediate halt, the focus shifted to super-secretive military missions. These missions took place once every few months when the conditions allowed for it. One of the obvious challenges was locating a suitable landing site in the middle of the Sudanese desert, a site that can serve those who made it to the Sudanese refugee camps. Mossad operatives discovered an all-but-forgotten dirt landing strip in the Sudanese desert that apparently appeared in British-issued maps from World War II. Though abandoned for decades, it was in semi-usable condition with no major potholes or trenches, thus rendering it fit for the rugged C-130 Hercules, like those used in Entebbe a few years earlier. Landing in the heart of an enemy territory, Israeli planes escaped detection as the nearby battery of surface-to-air missiles luckily proved to be ineffective.
So why not to land Israeli Air Force C-130 transport airplanes in the desert and bring in the Jews and fly them directly to Israel?
This video may seem mundane, however, it is anything but. It was recently declassified by the Israeli Air Force and was taken during a pre-flight briefing before a clandestine Friday night flight to rescue Ethiopian Jews from Sudan. Before this briefing, there was meticulous preparation. Here's Gotti to tell us about it.
Things we practice malfunction. You know, if there was a flat tire to the aircraft, or we need to fix something, or maybe malfunction in the engine.
Yes.
We practice all the technical methods to do it fast and in darkness.
Yeah.
Training of the landing, of the short landing, take out all the seats out, put some nice thing on the floor.
Yes.
And this is the way we decided to fly with the Ethiopian Jews to Israel. We didn't use our usual suits. We flying the civilian clothes. If something happened, nobody can tell that we belong to the Israeli Air Force.
We are back at the pre-flight briefing. This room was full of aviators and special ops who had to come up with an excuse to leave home on a Friday night. This group of soldiers are about to experience something very special that is likely to stay with them for the rest of their lives.
It was very exciting. We took off late afternoon to cross the board exactly at the dark and go all the way to Sudan.
Sudan was a very hostile nation to Israel. The clips you're about to see were classified as top secret for decades, but were recently declassified. The footage was taken with special night vision cameras that Mossad agents were given. The landing was performed on a short dirt landing strip in total darkness on a moonless night. The Mossad agents prepared the strip with special equipment. These operations were nerve-wracking in the plane and back at home. So many things could go wrong. In the plane, aside from the highly trained aircrew, there were special ops, combat medical crew, and at least one Ethiopian elder to help with communication. After an extremely dangerous and complicated landing, here's Gotti again.
We landed Sudan on after we understand that everything is okay. We land on field, open field, and we have about 5 to 10 minutes on the ground. We open the ramp from behind of the cargo compartment.
After the ramp and door were open, the first encounter for the aviators and special ops was with the Mossad agent in charge on the ground. The tension in the plane and on the ground contributed to this iconic embrace. The time on the ground was well rehearsed during long nights in the Israeli Negev. Every crew member knew exactly what to do. The time on the ground was limited to just a few minutes. The Israeli commandos bearing assault rifles and rocket launchers secured the area. The plane had its engines running for quick takeoff, and extreme precaution was used so no one would get in front of the propellers. The Ethiopian Jews, most have never seen an airplane, were petrified as the enormous metal bird rumbled down onto the desert floor. Once the plane touched down, it immediately created a spectacular dust storm. Waiting nearby for the signal to approach the plane, the Mossad agents guided the excited yet terrified Ethiopian Jews onto the plane.
Because it was very dark. It
was
absolutely dark. When you say darkness, this is darkness.
Yes.
It's very exciting to see all the guys, all the people walking to the aircraft with the. I sent you a movie.
Yes.
We saw all the people with the little suitcase and all the clothes and everything. They're going against the wind of the engine. It's hot. It's very hot. That nobody is sitting. Everybody is going to the front of the aircraft, and we push them as much as we can then closed the doors,
Mm-hmm.
then told men, please sit down.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the loading process, a quick count of the passengers and crew were done to ensure no one was left behind. Only then the ramp and door were closed. In the background, next to the now empty truck, are the Mossad agents hugging and high-fiving each other for another job well done. But they are not done. They have to ensure that there is no trace of them ever even being there, so there could be a future mission. So truly, no one was left behind. Here's Gotti again.
You don't have a minute to think. You do it like as you train, fast and very faster way, and safe. But you don't have time to think about what's happening now. What a history. After we closed ramp and the aircraft took off from the field, you start thinking. You start to have a relief. You did it. You're on the way home. Nothing can happen. We open the light turn on the light, and suddenly you can see how many people are sitting on the floor of the aircraft, how crowded they are. It's interesting. You can't walk from the aft of the aircraft to the forward of the aircraft by floor because there's no room.
Yeah.
So they have cables on the seal, and we just walking on the cables.
Very cool.
Back and forward.
I asked Gotti how he communicated with his passengers.
There's Ethiopian that know how to talk with the Jews, and we just watch them, worried about her, and try to bring them safe to Israel. We landed the, I call it secret place in the base that no one can come. It was watched and it was isolated.
In total, there were 8 clandestine C-130 flights, such as this one, bringing a total of 2,051 Ethiopian Jews. Regrettably, the conditions on the ground in Sudan did not allow for the clandestine missions to continue. Yet there were still several thousand Ethiopian Jews left behind. A solution needed to be found. With the support of the now large Ethiopian-Israeli community, they pressured the Israeli government to bring their brothers and sisters home. In 1991, the Israeli government finally approved a mission to bring them home, and for 36 hours, there were non-stop flights to bring the remaining Ethiopian Jews home.
So I understand that you were involved with saving the Ethiopian Jews via Operation Solomon. Can you tell me a little bit more about this mission?
So the mission was basically a 2 days operation of non-stop flights, around 40 flights.
ולמצב באתיופיה עצמה. הערב החלה ברית המועצות להוציא את אזרחיה מאדיס אבבה. גם צרפת ואיטליה החלו לפנות היום את אזרחיהן מאתיופיה. באדיס אבבה היום מצב של אי-בהירות. We
flew over the Red Sea and somewhere on the eastern part of Ethiopia we entered Africa.
Operation Solomon was the code-name for the covert Israeli military operation to airlift Ethiopian Jews to Israel in 1991. The operation was carried out over a non-stop 36-hour period. It started on May 24th of 1991 and ended on May 25th of 1991, and involved 40 Israeli aircrafts that transported close to 15,000 Ethiopian Jews to Israel. The operation was an enormous success, and it is estimated that it saved the lives of thousands of Ethiopian Jews who were facing persecution and violence in their home country. Operation Solomon was planned in secret over a period of several months. The Israeli government worked with the Ethiopian government to secure permission for the airlift. They also recruited the help of the United States government, which provided logistical support for the operation. While the Israeli and Ethiopian governments worked on this covert operation for several months, the final approval did not come until practically the very last minute.
We were told about this operation 3 days before.
Both governments were trying to keep the activity appear as normal commercial air traffic and not a military operation. Here's Adi again.
It's supposed to be a fully civilian rescue flight.
The operation included dozens of Israeli aircraft. Some were military planes made to look civilian. Those were white Boeing 707s from Squadron 120. Others were obviously military planes, Hercules C-130s. Those were flown mostly under the cover of darkness. In addition, there were a lot of Boeing 747s.
Which broke the record of taking passengers on 747.
As Adi just said, one of the Alal 747 indeed broke the world record. The Guinness World Records put the number at 1,088, including 2 babies who were born on the flight. Some at the Israeli Air Force say that the number is actually a tad higher at 1,122. This was achieved by modifying the aircraft's configuration. Here's Adi again.
The airplanes were conveyed to a configuration that will allow to put as much as possible of the passengers.
Aside from plane configuration, some human engineering was needed by the crew.
And they were standing until the last person. We didn't let them to sit down.
In order to maximize the number of passengers in the plane, the crew had the Ethiopians walk as far back into the plane and remain standing up. Once the plane was totally full, standing room only, the doors were closed and only then the passengers were allowed to sit down. Here's Adi wearing a white sweatshirt in what later became one of the most iconic photos of the operation.
There was also water and medical supply. During the whole operation, the airport was secured by the Israeli. And around the 6 a.m., we took off.
On all of the flights we have seen so far, there were Ethiopians with the crew who had already made the journey to Israel, and who spoke Amharic, the main language spoken in Ethiopia. Their job was to communicate with the passengers, help them navigate the unfamiliar territory of an airplane, and hopefully lower the unavoidable anxiety associated with such an operation, and the scary unknown. On Adi's flight, he was unable to locate his community later. Here's Adi again.
He disappeared. I found a young boy, 10 years old, telling the people in the plane what to do.
Operation Solomon included several types of planes. From the rugged C-130s that were used in the clandestine missions through Israeli Air Force's Boeing 707 to Alal Boeing 747. As you can see, the degree of passenger comfort varied quite a bit. However, nobody complained, as they were all so excited to finally be going to Jerusalem.
When we flew over Jerusalem, it was amazing. It was excitement like I've never seen so much people clapping their hands and singing.
Upon approaching Israel, excitement grew even more. Once landed, there were many dignitaries, including the Israeli Prime Minister, on the tarmac. Here's Adi again.
People who basically pushed for all this Aliyah, Prime Minister.
I think amazing operation. I was on the first aircraft that landed back in Israel with a Jewish Ethiopian, and I've seen something I've never saw before. All the landing area was empty. There's no one aircraft on the ground. All the aircraft was on the way to Ethiopia, to Addis Ababa, to bring the Jews, and it was really unique. Something unique that I didn't saw. Never.
From the planes, the new immigrants were taken on buses to absorption centers to help them adjust to their new and very different reality. A few found it less exciting.
The last C-130 landed around 4 p.m. in Israel.
The last plane ride of the operation encountered a serious problem.
So they had to take off with 3 engines, something that was never done. And Operation Solomon was basically the last operation that was like a rescue flight. I took a little child on my hands. I videoed about film. I want to show you right now a picture that I keep near my desk. I hope that you will see it clear. See?
Adi made the news that evening.
Part of the history, really. So from the very beginning, I understood that it's something remarkable.
There is no doubt that the various operations to bring the Ethiopian Jews back to Israel was nothing less than phenomenal. No other country in modern history has achieved such remarkable success. With that being said, the experiences of Ethiopian Jews after moving to Israel have been varied and complex, with both positive and challenging aspects.
From what I see when I work with people or when I meet people, I know it's difficult for them.
On the positive side, Ethiopian Jews finally got to experience religious fulfillment without a fear of retribution. For many Ethiopian Jews, moving to Israel meant coming to the land they consider their ancestral home and practicing their faith freely. This connection to their heritage and traditions has brought spiritual fulfillment for many. Aside from religion, most Ethiopian Jews are experiencing improved socioeconomic conditions. Life in Israel generally offers better access to education, healthcare, and employment opportunities compared to if they stayed in Ethiopia. This had led to improved living standards and upward mobility for many Ethiopian Jews. In addition, there's growing appreciation and recognition of Ethiopian Jewish culture in Israel. This includes initiatives to preserve their unique language, music, and customs, including the rich Ethiopian cuisine, which we have here in America. Fostering a sense of belonging and identity within the community. A big part of Israeli identity is rooted in its military service. Serving in the Israeli Defense Force is a crucial pathway to integration for many Ethiopian Jews. It provides opportunities for leadership, skill development, and a sense of belonging to the broader Israeli society. As hinted at the beginning of this movie, indeed there are some serious challenges as well. Ethiopian Jews are suffering from discrimination and racism. Unfortunately, Ethiopian Jews have faced discrimination and prejudice from some segments of Israeli society. This can be based on factors like skin color, cultural differences, and socioeconomic background. Moreover, social and economic integration is not easy and is not trivial. Bridging the culture and social gap with mainstream Israeli society can be very difficult. Language barriers, educational disparities, and stereotypes often hinder opportunities for advancement and full integration. While there's growing appreciation for Ethiopian Jewish culture, some worry about losing their unique traditions and customs as they integrate into Israeli society. Balancing cultural preservation with integration remains a challenge for many. It is important to remember that the Ethiopian Jewish community is diverse and has a rich history. Their experiences in Israel are ongoing and multifaceted. Here's Zehavit again.
It is very important to me to make sure that you understand I am talking about my own experience and not on behalf of my community. Everybody has their own personal bag of stories. I will try not to make generalizations. I will speak from my own experience. I do remember my first few years in Israel in a traumatic way. There was a lot of crying in households. We do have affirmative action because there truly is prejudice. If you go to juvenile hall, you'll see that most kids are Ethiopian. Racism will always exist, no matter where you are. My teachers always told me that I won't succeed. That is why I blocked myself from speaking English. I had a school principal who told me that I won't make it far. When I was with my non-Ethiopian friends, the principal would only criticize my school uniform. It was so obvious. I participated in the mothers' protest, given that there were so many soldiers dead and police shooting indiscriminately. So we protested.
I am shocked. I am shocked. We can't accept it. The police are handling it. We will need to change things. You said no to violence. These are leaders' words. Maybe good things will come out of it.
I did not personally experience it, but my brothers did. I once rescued my brother from an irresponsible police brutality incident. This was approximately 17 years ago. He was in 9th or 10th grade. I picked up my brother from a building where the police were looking for a soldier who went AWOL. My brother, while young, was tall and had a presence. As we were driving, my brother mentioned that we are being followed. I didn't believe him at first. He said, "Increase your speed and you will see that they are increasing theirs." I increased my speed and they did the same thing. That is when I realized they were chasing us. Suddenly, some motorcycles appeared on both sides of my car, and a cruiser was behind me. I didn't understand where they came from.
אז הוא אומר לי, תראי, סי קצת יותר מהר, את תראי שהם מגבירים את העוצמה שלהם. אמרתי לו, וואלה, אני מקשיבה לך. הגברתי קצת את הנסיעה, ואז אני פתאום באמת קולטת שהם רודפים אחריי. ואז פתאום שני אופנועים בשני הצדדים, בצד ימין ושמאל שלי, ועוד ניידת מאחורה. לא הבנתי מאיפה הם נפלו עליי. והם באים...
Then they jump on my car. I say, "Hold on a minute, please. Explain to me who you are. What do you want?" as they were just plainclothed. Please show me your badge. Then I said, how can I help you? Did I make a driving violation? You have someone we are looking for in your car, he said. I told him this is a kid. He insisted and said, no, 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 don't try to fool us. We saw that you picked him up from that building. We have a missing soldier. And I said, no, it's not him. I understand that it is difficult to see beyond color and that sometimes people do not look deeply. And by the way, if they were to take him, they would have messed him up.
The Jewish Ethiopian history is rich with Jewish power. The historical record is clear. The Ethiopian Jews were autonomous, devoted to their faith, and prayed to return to Jerusalem. While yes, the Israeli Air Force and Mossad did a lot for the Ethiopian Jews, the real heroes are the Ethiopian Jews themselves. They sacrificed everything to make it to the Holy Land. This is a story of endurance and persistence, a story of deep faith, of struggle, of sacrifice, and love for the Jewish homeland.
Okay? The new generation is changed. It is not our parents' generation that is full of true faith. We live in this society. We live in this culture. So what I am saying is that if I were to bring Injera to work 15 years ago, my friends would have said I'm crazy. Injera is something of our community. Why do you need to bring it to work? Why do they need to smell it? Today it is different. Today they beg me to bring Injera to work. At moments when I encounter such small-minded people, I simply shove them off, laugh it off, and move on. It is part of life.
But I think the state of Israel did a lot to bring the Jewish Ethiopian to Israel, but didn't do enough to insert them to the community of Israel.
I always loved my skin color. I love my skin color. I love my culture and community. It is an established, well-rooted, cohesive community. I know they have my back. I am very proud that I have a powerful community. Yet still, they're very polite and kind, very serious and devoted people. And I love my skin color.
ואני אוהבת את הצבע העור שלי. אז תמיד השתדלתי להיות מאוד נאמנה לדרך שלי, עם כל הקשיים, עם כל האתגרים.
I always try to be truthful in my own way, with all the difficulties and challenges. We were parents to our own parents. With all their life experience, it was still very difficult for them. It was very difficult for them to assimilate, and this was a huge transition.
Olo abda tikva tenu atikva shinotal faim lashu leerz awotenu erz Zion Berushalayim.